This one's started.
Yeah, all right.
I'll move this.
Okay. All right. Hi there, it's Ron here. Yeah, I wanna start off with this this book of Daniel by reading. So I'm gonna read these straight through. For the allegory in this, the parable, what I'm trying to relate here is if you, as the listener, well, first, what I'm going to be speaking of after is my own personal experience related when I heard these words. These words brought my own experience to mind inside. So that's what I want to relate. So if the listener, whoever you might be, if you could think of the ram in this case, in these 7 verses, as your own mind, your own thoughts, your brain, how you perceive things with your mind. In this case is the heart. It's how you feel. It's how you feel about things. So those two overarching types is what should be considered inside oneself. The ram is one's own thoughts and mind. The goat is one's own heart. So let me read these. Read these verses. So this is Book of Daniel, chapter 8, verse 3 through 9. I'll just read straight through. Then I lifted up mine eyes and saw, and behold, there stood before the river a ram, which had 2 horns, and 2 horns were high, but one was higher than the other, and the higher came up last. I saw the ram pushing westward and northward and southward, so that no beast might stand before him. Neither was there any that could deliver out of his hand, but he did according to his will and became great. And as I was considering, behold, an he-goat came from the west on the face of the whole earth, and touched not the ground. And the goat had a notable horn between his eyes. And he came to the ram that had 2 horns, which I had seen standing before the river, and ran unto him in the fury of his power. And I saw him come close unto the ram, and he was moved with choler against him, and smote the ram, and brake his 2 horns. And there was no power in the ram to stand before him. But he cast him down to the ground and stamped upon him. And there was none that could deliver the ram out of his hand. Therefore the he-goat waxed very great. And when he was strong, the great horn was broken. And for it came up 4 notable ones toward the 4 winds of heaven. And out of one of them came forth a little horn, which waxed exceedingly great, toward the south, and toward the east, and toward the pleasant land. Okay. Those 7 verses are what I want to go off of, that story of the ram versus the goat. So just to jump right in. Well, first, to have the eyes to see and the ears to hear, one needs a heart that feels and a heart that's open. So for those that have the eyes to see, the ears to hear, hopefully you can see that there'll be truth coming from what I say, and you have the open heart to accept what I have to say, because it is talking about the inner apocalypse I went through in this story. So the 7 verses of scripture right there, and what I got out of them, I could relate quickly to the spirituality of the number 7, the 7 governors, the 7 deadly sins, the 7 virtues. So with those 7 verses, let me describe the ram standing beside the river with its 2 horns, one greater than the other. That is the mind. That is the mind in imbalance. The horns, the outer horns are the perception and the consciousness looking outward at reality in the frame of unbalanced mind. One horn greater than the other. Is it logic? Is it creativity? Creativity that's out of balance. Whichever one, the reasoning is out of balance if locked in a perception. Are you more slave mentality, more master mentality, or a combination of both? Either way, the mind is out of balance when locked in the state of the RAM, mind, RAM, the high RAM above. Hiram Abiff, the builder of King Solomon's temple. Between your temples is not King Solomon's temple. Your temple between your temples has been filled with nonsense written by others throughout your existence, depending who you are, possibly mine was. I had to deconstruct King Solomon's temple, so to speak, inside my own mind to build my own temple, because my ram horns, so to speak, my mind was very much out of balance and I was operating from the state of mind. To give an example, you know what? Okay, this tattoo on my arm to show you in that state of imbalanced mind, not fully connected in mind, body, soul. I was stuck in the five sense perception of the world, only physical, not realizing there was a metaphysical tied together with the physical all along, and that I should have been going in line with the creator. So anyway, these horns, if you can see these outer horns on this tattoo on my arm, is a very good representation of what my mindset was for 39 years playing the so-called dark night, so to speak, in the physical world as a soldier trying to protect, which, since I didn't have a basic core of morality inside me and those teachings of morality that were so simple once I got them, but I had to go through the dark night of the soul to get there. Come to find out, I did. And that's a crushing of all my belief. But anyway, to me, that ram standing there with the horns beside the river, that's the mind standing there right next to the infinite stream of consciousness that one has within oneself that leads directly down to the heart. That river of energy that runs from the mind down the spine, through the heart, the guts, through all of us, through all the entirety of our being, whoever we are, whatever man and woman we are out there, it's that. So for me, when that goat, the heart in me, just to give it something, kind of an acronym, because I don't like to use theirs. They like to say whoever made it up, greatest of all time for the goat. I tend to think of it like something like our greatest overarching type. That's the goat. That's our heart. That's the potential within us that is our soul. Our greatest overarching type we can become. That's found in the heart. And that is the divine soul one has. The divine masculine or divine feminine manifestation of them, whatever gender they are. It's that, but it's that based in morality. It's the only way it can be found, because to me, that's when in me, the totality of my life experiences had built up to such a place as to where I didn't understand any of it when I was about to leave this world health-wise. And I started to ask myself all those deep questions. And that's when in me, the goat, so to speak, in my heart kind of rose up. There was that crushing empathy in there that came and destroyed the ram. Those two horns, the one horn bigger than the other, could look at it as the ego and the id, to use some simplified Freudian psychology terminology. Either way, that influence, the heart, the empathy, the feeling had to crush what the mind believed for the perception to become clear and unified from a place of empathy and feeling and morality in the heart. And that's how the divine self is realized. I was going to go other places with the horns and the
Yeah, as you were reading the scripture from the Bible, yeah, I knew exactly what you were going with. One horn higher than the other. I was thinking whether creative higher than the other, the logic higher than the other, just imbalanced brain. Yep.
yes,
Which and you said it exactly how it was building up in my mind as you were reading it. The imbalanced brain, which means lack of reason. You can't reason
yeah,
coherently.
yeah, and yeah. Let me see. Yeah, it brought something to mind. The horns. Ah, so when the goat. Okay, here's to me. This is that internal process. The great horn, that is the pineal gland. That later says that the great horn was the original king or the old king. That's the mind in balance. That's the king, queen chamber, the thalamus, hypothalamus. It's that's that. It's the pineal gland. It's that functioning properly. But while that is a great horn, one is stuck in Godhead mode, still in mind. Very open perception of things, of reality, but not operating from heart. So that great horn has to be broken also for the four smaller ones to reach up to the winds of heaven, the four elements, the four the four directions, the four pillars of the earth, etc. It's
Maybe think of the four chambers of the heart. Yeah.
yes, the four chambers of the heart. And while I mentioned that in the other video, while I was in there considering inside, yeah, that very was. Yeah,
Someone just said four chambers of the heart.
very much was. Yeah, those became the four horsemen of the apocalypse within me when I evaluated my own experience. So, where was I going with the four horns? The one horn has to be broken so one is not stuck in Godhead mode, as in putting oneself on a pedestal, and because that's how folk get the misconception that we're not all equals here, as we were always meant to be. It's just others wrote down in words that some are higher than others and some are more equal than others. That's nonsense. No. And that's the difference between, of course, morality and legality. They're two very different things. If life and society was based in morality, it would look very, very, very much different than it does now. Since it's been based in legality for so long, it's been allowed to be corrupted over and over and over and over and over, and just labeled different things in different ways, but the same old things playing over and over and over again. So, yeah, for me, I don't even want to go that route into that side of the law side of things. It's all whatever. It's not moral. It's not moral. It's not morality. So where else was it going? So the big horn has to be broken to be a small horn, which seeds or which becomes exceedingly great. The small horn. That's when one is operating, in my humble opinion, from the soul, in the heart, knowing with all the capabilities of one's own mind imbalanced and becoming the greatest overarching type of oneself. For me, that would be what I conceive of as the divine masculine manifest of a being in this form. How I should act in a moral fashion. How those teachings trying to teach us all to act, but had been twisted by others that were presenting the teachings to us. To me, I had to get to a spot within myself to be able to extract my own, number one, wisdom from my own experience. Number two, extract the actual morality or immorality out of things presented to me instead of blindly accepting, trusting, and believing like I did for so long. I'm convinced that we can't stay fooled forever. And that's the only reason I've been trying to make some videos and try to say anything at all, because I know the potential's there for us to all fix ourselves at any time we choose to. Anytime we all choose to realize that evil is a choice and it's unnecessary, and that many folks out there have just gotten their groupings and their pile of labels they attach to themselves, and they put on their costume and they go out and they live life trying to live their life according to the labels they attach to themselves, and pick sides all along the way, and without realizing that the whole thing is based in immorality. It's that kind of thing. So I know it can all change and turn around. And I guess that's kind of all I wanted to say. Words just run together, just starting to mumble. So what's better? Republican, Democrat, Independent? Incorrect. I'm just kidding. I don't know who's watching, but yeah, they're immoral. Government's mind control. Self-governance, that's really the only governance that we should be looking for. That's the one I found in myself. Self-governance, how to control myself. Quite a novel concept it turned out for me. After being kind of a raging weirdo alcoholic kind of guy wearing a costume, trying to do right out in life, just not realizing he was doing wrong all over the place. Weird. What else? How about pro-life or pro-choice? Incorrect. It's immoral. Why are we picking sides over someone else's life? It shouldn't be going on. You know how that fits? That actual abortion thing, I wanted to say, I thought of this earlier. Considering it in relation to natural law and morality, I was thinking to myself, when would abortion actually be moral, or would it, or could it? Because that life is not my own. Well, so I can't decide. That's number one. I have nothing to do with it. Number two is too many folk think that their opinion should be enforced on other folk. That's government. So I'm not trying to go back there. Anyway, number three is I'll probably try and get to what I was going to say originally that I just kind of lost myself on. Oh, yeah. So if the pregnancy, if the life inside the mother was harming the mother, was causing harm to her life and had the potential to kill her, that's when I could see it being justified. Yeah, when there, at the same time, there is no justification. That's another trap folk fall into, is justifying immoral actions and behaviors. So, but in that way, if the mother's life was being harmed, that goes also in line with the self-defense principle of protecting oneself from another life causing harm to it. Even if that life happened to be in the mother's belly, unfortunately, because of some whatever reason or multitude of reasons, I could see that in that case. But either way, like I said, I'm also not the judge. It's not up to me to judge except for myself and my own actions. It was just a thought I had. I just wanted to share that while I was at it, while I was actually talking. What else? Anything else rattling around in here? You know what? There was a lot more stuff I was going to talk about with that the goat and the ram. Yeah, I started getting into that. Yeah, that the high ram above, that goes with some of the Masonic teachings. I'm not a Mason. I never was a Mason. I look at stuff, I read stuff, and especially since I kind of woke up to stuff. But yeah, that high ram above, the RAM, the cerebrum, the cerebrum, the mind. Just to lock that in some more to that allegory I'm talking about, the mind there. And the mind is what? The mind, of course, is why society is in a state of mind control, because of the language that was used to teach it and the definitions that were attached to the words and the way folk were taught to perceive things. Not realizing there was a whole nother spiritual side to themselves and an infinite spark of a soul that was in there for them to grow. They could only find it, and they can. They all can. Or maybe they can't. Like I say, I don't know. All I can know is what I know for myself, inside myself, in me. And that's where I'm speaking from. So if I was trying to that's the thing, I'm not trying to lead anyone anywhere. I'm only trying to bring folk to where they're already at. To go deeper in themselves, wherever that might be in that moment. That's what it took for me to wake up, to start. The ram and the goat also. So the ram, Aries, right? Aries, the ram, spring, coming up on the vernal equinox. Capricorn, the goat, the winter. That's a question. Have you used the winter wisely to recharge and be ready for spring? Because there might be a lot of stuff coming. It seems a lot of bad stuff is in the works by the crazies out there, the crazies that wear costumes, the crazies that want to divide our species and pit us against each other in every possible way. This fighting, this ridiculous subjugation of each other, just so some can strip the resources from the land. You know, it's all ridiculous. That just brings me to that whole kind of law thing, how that came about, and how everything's a trust upon a trust on top of a trust, and yeah, the different. It doesn't matter. It's all ridiculous. What has to come about is all of us realizing our own sovereignty inside us, and realizing that we ourselves become sovereign divine beings when we become that. And that's when we become one in ourselves and realize that we rule ourselves and no other outside of us can rule us, because we ourselves don't have the power to rule any outside of us. That's how you see what everything's set up here. That's how you see it's wrong. Then when you look into the morality of the things that have been taught and the practices that have been going on in the so-called food, drink, so-called medicine, what's taught in whatever school of thought, hierarchical structure of this or that or the other, it's all belief systems. It's all belief systems, and if you take any number of them, I bet the majority of them at their core are immoral at their core, if you just look. That's what I found. Experiences vary. I'm going to leave this here for now. So thanks for listening. I appreciate it. Feel free to share or whatever.
Stop it.
Yeah, sure.